To the round table. This is a weekly news and current affairs program of Punch where we treat big stories that have made the round in the nation. Now, as the practice is, the three stories considered the biggest among all the stories of the week are treated, and we bring them on for deliberations and analysis. Today, I have joining me from the studios here a dear colleague, Adidiong Ikpoto. And of course, via Zoom, we have joining us Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, is a financial and economic analyst. Also, we have joining us Jide Ojo, a journalist and a public affairs analyst. To kickstart the conversation, we shall go through the three major stories and as such, begin with the first analysis. My name is Melanie Ishola. Our first big story today is cybersecurity levy and the Tinubu's many policies. Second is the 2.7 billion Air Nigeria fraud. Hadi Sirika daughter-in-law slammed 100 million naira bill each. And the third story is journalists' abduction, securing freedom for Olatunji and Ojukwu. Now, to the very first story today. Cybersecurity levy and the Tinubu's many policies. The Nigerian government, I beg your pardon, is seemingly engaged, people would say, in multiple battles, with policies aimed at tightening belts, leaving the masses feeling the pressure. Recently, on May 6th, 2024, the Central Bank of Nigeria directed banks and financial institutions to commence deductions for a cybersecurity levy, as outlined in a circular from the CBN's directors. Now, this directive follows the enactment of the 2024 Cybercrime Amendment Act, which mandates a 0.5% deduction from the value of all electronic transactions for the National Cybersecurity Fund, administered by the NSA's office. Now, the circular specifies that the deduction should be labeled cybersecurity levy, with institutions instructed to commence deductions 2 weeks after the circular's issuance. However, there's been a lot of confusion which arose among the public due to a disparity in the percentage rate between the former and the new acts, leading to discussions on the necessity for clearer communication and potential revisiting of the legislation. Now, in March 2018, there was a circular by the CBN initially mandating a 0.005% levy on electronic transactions, later clarifying in a June 2018 follow-up that the levy should be a 0.005 of the service charge from all electronic financial transactions. Also, it is key that we note that there's been a lot of taxes to monies owned and owed by individuals in Nigeria, levies such as transfer fee, stamp duties, short messaging service, SMS fee, value-added tax, I bet to say among others. But I know that would be me adding something right there. Now, amidst other policies of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we've had the unification of the Naira, an attempt to float the Naira against the dollar at the foreign exchange market. We've equally had the fuel subsidy removal, a move that seemingly looked like we were hitting the ground running. Now, this is the premise for the first conversation today. Thank you for joining me once again, gentlemen. Adidiong, good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. And it is your first time, however, isn't it, on the round table?
Exactly.
Exactly. And also, Mukhtar joins us via Zoom. Mukhtar, good to have you on the program today. Excellent. Excellent. So we can start the conversation. I've laid the premise, and specifically, it's good to know that this isn't the first policy. It's just one of the few policies of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it's interesting that even this particular one didn't particularly start with his administration. Of course, it's equally an APC's administration. However, it was in 2018 that the entire Cyber Act, got enacted and brought about the introduction of the cybersecurity levy. But let me start with what you make, Mukhtar. I'll start with you and then bring it home to Edidion, right here in the studio, what you make of the cybersecurity levy, a directive given by the CBN.
I think it's anti-people, it's anti-financial, it's anti-financial inclusion. It's one of the worst financial bills I've come across in my little life, because I've tried to see all over the world whether there's any country that does that. Because and if you looked at what the presidency was saying, or when they were not the ones saying it, but through pay advertorials in a lot of dailies just today, trying to make us know that the cybersecurity fund is going to be used to fight banditry, kidnapping, and terrorism. So what you're saying, that Nigerians will start paying for the security of their lives themselves. And so we've gone beyond. So it's just a name
we
that
lost
was
you for a second. Mukhtar, we lost you for about some 20 seconds. If you could just take it again.
Okay. What I'm saying is that
speaking to yes.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that the Cybersecurity Act, for me, is anti-people, is anti-financial inclusion, and I try to go through check any part in the world, whether there's any part in the world that has such a bill. I've not seen. So maybe it's Nigerian homegrown way of trying to build their economy. But this, I mean, when you look at what they are saying today, we saw a lot of pay advertorials in dailies, and these were not actually run by the presidency or the Office of the National Security Advisor. They were run by individuals. And then they're telling us that most of this fund was going to use to fight terrorism, and also used to fight banditry. The cybersecurity levy was just a name given to it. And so what it means is that Nigerians are beginning to pay for the security of their lives and property. And you are telling me that I should pay for the security of my fund. It's more or less that if you own a business, you are telling me that when I come to your business premises, the security, my security is not in your hand, it's still my hand. I should be able to provide security for myself. What makes a business thrive is when I go there, I know I'm secure. So what the government is saying now is that you hands up security. We are no more in charge of security. Individuals should begin to pay for their personal security. That's what it means. I think this bill, they should take a second look at this bill. And then when you look at the rural area, we have been trying to achieve financial inclusion. And with this bill, I think it is going to...
Yes, the rural population. Thank you so much, Tar, for that. So I'd like to have your take, Edidion, and, have what your take is regarding this. So all of a sudden, and well, not very all of a sudden, because we had it coming since 2018, right? But now we have to implement. And in just about a week more, we have the implementation beginning. How would you feel saying as now you have to pay 50 naira on a 10,000 naira transaction?
Okay, let me start by saying, I think about an hour ago, I saw somewhere on the news that the House of Reps have stopped the implementation of the policy. I don't know how true it is because it was one of these blogs, so I'm not exactly...
Yet unverified.
Yes, but let's just go with the assumption that, they're still moving ahead, with the implementation. The first thing I want to say is that it's ill-timed, and of course we all know the reason. We know what's happening in the economy. So the last thing you want to do is suffocate the Nigerians that are already choking. And again, as someone who has looked at the 2024 budget forensically, I can tell you that there's so much bogus provisions in that budget that if you're, to really come up with a budget that is honest, you can make enough provision for the office of the NSA to fight, cybersecurity.
Without asking the people to pay for it.
Without necessarily. I think that ever since this government came into power, it's almost like every single thing that they want the people to have to pay for it. Okay. Probably maybe tomorrow they'll start asking Nigerians to pay for the construction of Lagos-Ibadan Express or something like that.
How about the construction from here to Calabar? What have we paid for it, Edidion?
Yeah, so, but it shouldn't be like that. Okay. I think that government should make provisions for, like, Mukhtar said, it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. So it's quite unfortunate.
Thank you for your thoughts there, Edidion. And now quickly, Mukhtar, I think it's equally interesting that both of you seem to share the same position regarding this current security levy, cybersecurity, I beg your pardon. But then I'm wondering, we've had a few policies tilting in this direction since the Bola Ahmed Tinubu's almost 1 year administration. And it's indeed very key to look at what you may make of impacts of consecutive policies like this. To some people, it will be a sort of back-to-back of fuel that we're still grappling with. Some people still purchase fuel as high as 800, 900, 1,000. And then we have to, in some way of saying it, surcharge our monies. Now, I went to X and I saw a lot of comments where Nigerians are saying, so for making my money now, I have to pay the government for it. So largely, I'm asking Mukhtar for you to give me your assessment of the impact of these consecutive policies on the masses.
Well, the impact have brought untold hardship to the masses. Cost of goods and services have gone up. Inflation still going up, especially food inflation. The last from the nice data we got from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics said about 40%. You and I know that it's more than 40%. If you go to the market today, you buy something, the next day you go back, that thing is ×2. So, but let's leave it at the 40%, and it's still very high. And also now coming up with this bill again, it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect the market woman. It's going to affect every trader. So they will pass the bulk of that fee back to the consumer. So what we're going to see is that Nigerians' earning capability will keep going down, and where they are not anymore. So it's a bill that I still not been able to understand why I should be paying for the cyber security of my bank or national cyber security, because again, we want to ask the NSS or the National Security Advisor or NSA office, what that the banks are now so well bought, because I stand to be corrected. All the platform we use to do our transaction are owned by the bank, they're not owned by the Office of the National Security Advisor. And when you look at the Office of the National Security Advisor, it's one office that have not have transparency or accountability. You cannot even challenge it, because by the time you want to challenge, okay, we have so much amount of fund have gone into that place, and they will say we can't say it publicly because it's for the sake of national security. There are things, so it's creating more room for corruption. So what will those funds be doing in the hand of the National Security Advisor? So to be fighting banditry, will that fund be used to increase salary for the armed forces? To fight the bandits and terrorists? So what is the taxpayers' money then being used for? So it is more or less like that double taxation. So I think that the government should really have a rating. This is not the end of taxes. Just yesterday, the chairman of the Tax Reform Committee is saying that Nigeria, we might have to increase value-added tax again. Remember, we just did that increment. And the World Bank is saying they're going to give the government about 750 million. And out of that, they may introduce communication tax. So it's more or less like everything, despite the hardship in the land, what the government is trying to do is to increase more hardship on already hard economy that we are going through. And the good thing is that it's not just the masses that are even feeling the heat. Even the middle class and the so-called rich are feeling the heat. But the difference between the very rich is that they are passing the bulk of that fee back to the very, very poor. And I think that's why the government really need to look at this policy. I think it's not a policy that should be implemented now. And even if it's what you want to implement now, we've had other contributions like the educational tax trust fund. You have multinationals in this country. So maybe you begin to say, okay, for each profit you make every year, you give us so much percentage to fight terrorism, to fight banditry, maybe 1%, maybe 0.005% of your profit after tax. That could make, not saying that every Nigerian every day should be paying, and we don't know how long we'll be paying. Is it something we'll be paying eternally? I mean, in our whole lifetime, that's not
eternally, or is it just for a period of time?
Or is it for the period of 2024 Financial Act?
And it's interesting, do you even get to pay it on certain transactions and not on other transactions? For example,
if you look at the transaction that they are saying you will not pay
and whatnot.
Yes, if you look at some of those transactions that they are saying you shouldn't pay this cybersecurity fee on. You realize those transactions are not the productive transactions. They're not the ones that are adding jobs to the economy. They're not the ones that are productive. You are not saying the manufacturing sector should be exempted from such tax. You are not saying the
yes.
You are not saying
thank you.
You are not saying
Mukhtar,
the SMEs
you're taking that from my mouth.
From such tax.
And yes. Thank you. So you're taking that from my mouth, but I really want us to
that somewhat systemically. And that's to quickly look at the whole issue of the 0.5% first and the 0.005%. Would you gladly, and I'm starting with you, Edidium, do we say this is simply an omission or is it a commission? Because clearly the 2018 Act clearly stated 0.005%. Right, and we have seen a recent directive from the CBN stating 0 points.
But they are still going with the 0.005.
No, it's been 0.5 that we've been told. So it's caused a lot of controversies, conversations, arguments.
What I've actually seen on the news is 0.005. 0.5 would be ridiculously high.
Would be.
Yes,
so I came across an analysis, but I would just allow Mukhtar quickly respond to this as well. The 0.005 debacle with the 0.5 percentage, an omission, a commission, or are we misunderstanding it?
I didn't get you, but what you're trying to say, is it 0.5 or 0.005? I think they've came out to clarify that.
Okay.
It's 0.005. I think it's 0.005. They came out to clarify that. I think the senior special advisor to the president came up. I think Bayo Ononuga came out to clarify that.
Okay. Now, interestingly, I would hinge this conversation before we make a wrap and go to the next story on the entire impact on business development, especially for small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. And that's where Mukhtar, was headed, before I brought in the 0.05, what's not into the conversation. But I'm beginning with right here before taking it back to you, Mukhtar. And for me, I'm interested in having conducted, your research and how you write
and for what in this sector. Could you clearly speak to what you see as the impact of this on a day-to-day business? Mark you, there are businesses that are not worth more than just 10,000 naira anyways. So how would these levy, much as every other thing that we are already paying for, being taxed on our money, how would it affect businesses?
Okay, I want to start by saying that this has been the story with this administration, taking decisions without really understanding the impact. And it began from day one when the president stood there on the podium and said, subsidy is gone. No research, he had no idea, he wasn't the president before then, had no idea what was happening in the downstream sector. So on the basis of what are you, declaring subsidy is gone? And it's the same thing now, taking decisions without really understanding the impact. And, there was a statement from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry yesterday urging the government to reverse this, particular tax because of the impact it is going to have on many businesses. About a month or thereabout ago, I was on the phone with one of the EXCO members of Nigerian Association of Small-Scale Industrialists, and they were talking about how this sugar tax, the issues they are having with customs, that many of them are, going out of business. So if small businesses are saying we are closing shops every day and they have to contend with this again, the impact simply is that more and more businesses are going to go under.
Yes.
Because I did a story sometime last year, and what I discovered was that in about a year, about 4 million SMEs shut down. I didn't say it. It was
data that you got on the field.
Yeah. I didn't say it. It was the Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria, based on their own research shows. So these guys have a lot of issues to contend with. This is just going to ensure that more and more businesses
collapse.
are taken out.
Okay, thank you. Now, there is a more intricate part of that conversation, Edidiong, before I take it back to Mokhtar, and is the aspect of how monies have been exchanging our hands across the nation. E.g., for most parts, the recent handling of physical naira for me has largely been through POS transactions, whereby I slot in my card and then they give me the money. I cannot tell you the last time I went to an ATM machine to literally withdraw, cash. And I'm looking at how, if possible, this particular cybersecurity levy would have an impact on that also back end with regards to maybe how much is charged per transaction. And would that also mean hoarding of money, or how do you literally look at this from that angle?
No, I don't think it would really have so much impact in that sense. And again, the truth is lack of clarity, really, because when you were reading, it said all electronic transactions, but from what I've heard, they said peers, like peer-to-peer transactions, me transferring money to my friend, is not going to be charged. So again, it comes back to lack of clarity, but I don't think this will have such far-reaching,
effect on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now back to you, Mokhtar. I need you to weigh in very heavily on the entire MSMEs and what the impact of all of this would be, and indeed what we should expect as a micro and macroeconomic impact in the interim and long run.
Well, we should expect cost of goods to go high, and that means cost of services, cost of household items, whatever will go up. Definitely inflation also go up, cost of living will go up. Those are the means some SMEs will not be able to survive, so may have loss of jobs because again, some of these SMEs or business thrive on marginal profit or gain, and when those marginal gains are eroded with charges, then there might not be business for them any longer. So what we're going to see, we are going to see a lot of businesses will just we might not just see them, like you just make mention of one, the POS terminal, because their profit margin
That's right.
is very slim, is very low. And so where you have to pay charges and they are telling you they want to take that charges to you, the consumer, you might be saying, no, I don't want to take that charges. And so then you might not patronize them like you used to. You rather go to the bank and go through the counter.
That's correct.
And so, because that's
Thank
what's
you.
going to happen, a lot of people would rather go to the bank and go to the counter than going to any machine to collect, since I'm going to pay, because that law states that even if I issue check, I will be exempted from the cybersecurity fee. So what we are going to see,
Levy.
we are going to return to that way where big businesses, high ticketing transaction will now be done through cash rather than doing it electronically because of the charges
Thank you.
and also that will impact, or will also have an impact in the bank's earnings in the long run because of what they call fee. We may have to go down because a lot of people will begin to look for ingenious ways of doing things rather than pay that cybersecurity fee. Like I'll ask you, okay, do you have an account in a certain bank? That's the bank I have an account. That's the
That's
bank we can
correct.
do transactions.
Thank you.
So there are a lot of things that will
Thank
go.
you very much, Mokhtar. Yes, thank you. I mean, your contributions have been quite insightful on the roundtable today. Thank you so much for your time. That'll be all on that story. Yes, indeed, Mokhtar Mohammed there joined us today.
An international financial and economic analyst, is weighed in heavily on the issue of the cyber security levy. Now moving on to our second story, 2.7 billion Air Nigeria fraud. Hadi Sirika daughter-in-law slammed 100 million naira bill each. A federal territory high court, Abuja, on Thursday, and that's earlier today, granted the former Minister of Aviation and Aerospace, Hadi Abubakar Sirika, bail. The court also granted his daughter, Fatima Hadi Sirika, and in-law, Jalal Hama, bail. Sirika, his daughter, son-in-law, and Aldurak Investment Limited were charged to court over alleged 2.7 billion naira fraud in connection with the botched Nigeria Air project by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. According to the court documents, the other defendants are one Jalal Amar and Albaruk Investment Limited. The EFCC in the charges accused Sirika of conferring undue advantage on some entities between April 2022 and March 2023 in Abuja. The anti-graft agency alleged that Sirika abused his office by awarding consultancy 1.3 billion naira contract for the Nigeria Air startup to Tianaro Nigeria Limited. The EFCC also said that the ex-minister acted contrary to Section 19 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act of the year 2000. In count 3, the EFCC accused Sirika of criminal breach of trust while being the Minister of Aviation and in such capacity as a public officer on or about August 18, 2022 in Abuja within the jurisdiction of this honorable court. Now, a whole lot more I can say. However, Justice Silvanus Orji granted the bail request of the defendants. They pleaded not guilty to all charges preferred against them after it was read out today. Now, this is happening nearly a year after Hadi Sirika held the position as the Minister of Aviation. A very quick question, and I would come to you first, Edidiong. And now Jide Ojo joins us. Jide Ojo is a journalist, he's a columnist at The Punch, and is also a public affairs analyst. Good afternoon, Mr. Jide Ojo. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Melanie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, I reeled out the information regarding the second story, and I mean, did ask Gideon first what it makes of this case. You know, it seems there's such thing as a high-profile.
Very well sit in that purview. But what do you make of it, and especially the sitting today at court that led to bail already? Some would say bail already. Why did it somewhat seem like the bail was, in a sense, easy?
Melanie, if you look at my face very well, you can tell that I didn't want to talk about this case. I really do not want to talk about the EFCC as a whole, because, of course, when the issue with Nigerian Air came up, even as a neutral, you could tell that there were a lot of loopholes. A lot of things didn't just smell right. But what I'm interested about the EFCC is, you know, an agency of government, which for me is supposed to be a public property, becoming a handmaiden tool for the government to use to, you know, prosecute its enemies. I don't understand it. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there was the issue of former Kogi State governor. And it almost seems like the EFCC has become a tool where the government uses to go after political enemies. Yes, Sirika will have his day in court. But we have someone who is sitting as a Senate president who was accused of serious corruption charges. I haven't seen any FCC, you know, action regarding that. In fact, matter of fact, the president, only a few days into office, fired the former EFCC boss who was investigating him. So a lot of things are not just right with, you know, that agency, and it almost seems like, you know, any government that is in power uses it as, you know, a tool.
I see clearly that this story to you looks somewhat like I'm asking you to talk about
justice when the justice is selective.
Okay, to talk about the EFCC's administration itself.
There is no justice.
Okay, clearly. Thank you so much, Adidiong. We're coming back to it, but I quickly need to hear Jide Ojo on this particular one. So, Mr. Jide, Mr. Ojo, quickly, we
just reeled out the entire premise for the bail of the former aviation minister, Hadi Sirika, his daughter, his son-in-law, and others indicted in this matter. What do you make of this, the light of course, the EFCC's arrests, investigations?
Hadi Sirika's case had been expected, given the mishandling of Air Nigeria project, which many believed was a hoax. And so people
Many believe, Mr. Ojo, do you believe it was a hoax or do you not?
Well, if it wasn't an hoax, why are we not running here Nigeria today?
Absolutely.
That was supposed to be the signature program of his
administration office.
He made so much noise about it since he was appointed in 2019 that he was going to give Nigeria a national carrier, but we saw that rather he was helping his daughter-in-law in a clear case of conflict of interest and a clear case of breach of public trust. But whether this will get EFCC to convict him is being awaited, because I'll stop being excited about arraignment of high-profile politically exposed persons. We've seen this time and again, and what eventually ends up in is just like an anticlimax of sort. But 4.135 billion alleged misappropriation is huge. 4.1 trillion by even as devalued as the currency of Nigeria is. We see so many roads, schools, hospitals, and even provide infrastructure for many communities, including the Katsina state, where the Sirika comes from. So, but you see, there is a popular saying that everybody is a thief. Everybody steals, rather, but it's only the person who
that is caught
that is a thief.
So it seems that there is the rule of don't get caught. Like,
yes,
steal but not get caught. How did we get there? You know, because I mean, like, do not get caught should not even be a conversation. It's a case of you have been unfed with public funds, office, and public institutions. Run it well. Do not run it aground.
Well, that is the charge. That is the charge. But we know that to do the right thing is the hardest thing for politically exposed person. We have not recovered from Better Edu's case.
Absolutely.
Just a few days ago, we heard about the 6 billion contract scam or scandal in NSCDC. The White Lion in Kogi is still on the run, and several other instances. So it feels like everybody is on the game. And, you know, people, they are no longer, in my days growing up in Ibadan, when you say somebody stole 1 million, you say, hey, 1 million like is 1 zillion. But today, the people are no longer being charged for
1 million naira theft.
It's not billion. It starts from billion.
It's somewhat lucrative to steal big. Yes, it's somewhat lucrative to steal big, don't you think?
Yeah, because if you steal big, you will be able to hire a high-profile lawyer who can use technicality to get you out of jail. I think that's just the... So how did we get here? It's a whole conversation on its own. But it really leaves a sore taste in the mouth that Hadi Sirika, well, is, like I said, is long expected, because it sold Nigeria a dummy over the Air Nigeria project. We saw on the eve of his departure a borrowed aircraft from Ethiopia that was painted Air Nigeria, that flew in on the Friday preceding the Monday that the Buhari will leave power. And they just made a show, and a few interviews were granted, and everybody never saw. In fact, from that point, after the public display, the flight went back to Ethiopia, and the plane was rebranded Ethiopian Airlines.
Thank you so much, Julio. again, so much that
you have brought us again to the premise of all of this. I quickly want Edidiong to come in just right there. I mean, Jide brought us to the premise of all of this. For anybody who possibly have forgotten what the issue was or still is with Hadi Sirika. Now, when you look at that particular scenario he just painted, I looked and I felt that there's been a lot of failures. For me, failure of morality, right? Failure on the part of an entrusted individual in public office who is unable to not just deliver, but also unable to stay true to his inability to deliver by swindling, scamming, and possibly just deceiving the entire nation into believing that. I mean, I imagine how happy I was at the sight of a Nigerian air, only to realize that it was a charade after all. Come on. Let's talk about this scam.
But Melanie, we need to go back to what is the charge against Sirika? Conferring undue advantage to his friends. I want to use the word friends. And it goes back to what I said. I want to paint you a picture. The Lagos-Calabar, the Coastal Road. Who is handling that road? High-Tech Construction. That's right. High-Tech Construction is owned by the Shaguris. At least sitting down here, I can state with facts that I have that the relationship between the president and the Shaguris goes back 20 years plus. I have a letter of the president writing, when he was Lagos State Governor, writing to Obasanjo to grant Eko Atlantic City, still the same owners, the coastal land there at Victoria Island for the development. When he was Lagos State Governor, he wrote that letter, signed by himself. 2 days ago, the presidency came out and admitted that the president's son is a member of the board of a subsidiary of the same company. How is that any different from what Sirika has done? Is the EFCC going to probe that? Not in a million years.
That's right. Now, I know in some manner of speaking that this conversation to a great degree would be more about the EFCC than it is about Hadi Sirika. It's just impossible for us to just drop the name Hadi Sirika and also go back to some of the things that have transpired. But then, indeed, I'd like to take that from
Hadi Sirika will
how
have...
important is it for the EFCC to get it right this time?
Hadi Sirika will have his day in court, but he cannot have his day in court when you have a government that treats the Constitution like a list of suggestions. And that's the problem that we have. I was telling a friend the other day, why won't multi-choice disregard a court order? Because the government itself treats the Constitution like it's a list of suggestions. And that is the reason we will never have, he just said it's going to come like, an anticlimax, and Nigerians have short memory, and before you know it,
we've forgotten and
nobody talks about it anymore.
Mr. Ojo, do you think that we are on the verge of forgetting about it after just a few mentions, a few court arraignments, or do you think that the EFCC, would you want to put in your maybe faith this time in the EFCC, hoping that this will be an opportunity to get things right and begin to go in the right directions?
Well, Melanie, there have been advocacy around having a special court for trying corruption cases. I know that was one of the things former President Buhari tried to do, but he never succeeded. But I think it has to be revisited. Although I read that having granted 100 million naira bail each, the trial is now scheduled for 10th, 11th, and 28th of June. That's barring no unforeseen circumstance. We hope to see whether this can be given expeditious hearing. I know that the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, ACJ, ACJA, Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, I think, has mandated judicial officers to deal with criminal cases within 6 months. But this has always been observed in breach. And that's why we are not seeing many results, because if we have followed the ACJA, that's Administration of Criminal Justice Act, we will have seen several convictions in court, But I also want to, you know, there is a popular saying that justice delayed is justice denied. But
Denied.
I hope EFCC under Olatunji has gotten its witnesses and exhibits and all the things that could lead to conviction. Because what usually happens, look at the case of former Attorney General from Kogi State, what's his name now? That was recently discharged and acquitted after about 8 years of prosecution. Adoke. So you know he was recently discharged and acquitted about a couple of weeks back. So it's not enough to jubilate and celebrate. The jurisprudence under which Nigeria operates presumes a man innocent until the otherwise is proven. And
Okay.
in this instance now, there is a lot of clannishness. Remember, Hadi Sirika is said to be very close to former President Buhari. They are from the same state. And this is what pains me most. Hadi Sirika was a licensed pilot. And I have been part of those who clamor for round peg and round hole. If somebody with that background, who is an aviation expert, who is a flyer, who is a pilot of many years, is made a minister, and all that you can claim to have achieved is this issue of abuse of office and clannishness, you know, giving 1.4 billion naira contract to your son-in-law and your daughter to do work on the Katsina airport. It then tells you that this is a huge letdown. That's provided it's proven to be true. But, you know, it takes a lot to get conviction in court. That's why people stay big, because they want to get the best lawyers who will raise all manner of technicalities.
Thank you.
And at the end of the day, the
case to essentially extend the lifespan of the case. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Joe. And I mean, there's still a lot more to talk about on this story. However, we move very quickly to our third story today. Now,
Young, I'm talking to journalists Abduction, and that's securing freedom for Olatunji and Ojukwu. I think that this is a really big discourse, and in just a very few moments, we're going to do justice to this, as time is not very much on our side. Now, a few days back, we celebrated World Press Freedom Day, and then you seem to ask yourself, as a journalist in a place like Nigeria, how free truly is press? Now, you could also argue that maybe press essentially was freer in some administration than other administration. However, these are all a part of the conversation we're about to have. Now, a journalist of the FIJ was abducted a few weeks back, and it's interesting that Mr. Ojukwu has been in custody for more than the said days without any justification.
It's about 8 days.
It's 8 days now, yes. Days. And the conversation still goes on regarding Ojukwu. Interestingly, Mr. Olatunji, who remained, whose whereabouts remained unknown until Friday, 3rd May, right, coinciding with the commemoration of World Press Freedom Day, eventually got his freedom. However, it raises a very key question very quickly as to what constitute the limits of powers, right, for the police, I would go this time around, where it comes to the abduction, or do I not use abduction but use arrest? Pardon me to use arrest of journalists or members of the press specifically. I start with you, Young, and that's a way of asking for your analysis of the entire Ojukwu Olatunji scenarios.
Yeah, but if you listen very closely, then you already have my answer.
No, absolutely.
A few moments ago, I was saying that we have a government that treats the Constitution like it's a list of suggestions.
But in the regard that it affects you and I, and you know how they say it could just be you tomorrow, but it won't be you.
Yeah,
but it's a serious matter.
We found out the Olatunji issue. Now, what happened with Olatunji was that the Medium
he reports for.
Yes,
He's an editor.
published, I think Fresh News published that the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, tried to corner $30 billion and 66 houses. Now, you know, that's a staggering amount of money. In fact, the accusation itself is really staggering. But what I find curious is the next step is for you to apprehend the guy. No lawyer, no case, no trial, no information. Just put him on the ground. Fisayo Soyombo, the investigative journalist, was saying about, I think yesterday, is that if you feel something has been published that is untrue, there's the system, there's a whole system, a process that you should follow. It's not just, you know, abduct. That's a kidnap. Okay? No trial, no lawyer, no due process.
Thank you, Odidiong. I'll take it away from you very quickly and going straight to Mr. Ojo. Now, Jide Ojo, I mean, the case of sudden disappearance of journalists is a big one. One that gets almost every journalist right now wondering, do I publish it? Sudden disappearance. I mean, and then you ask yourself, do I publish this story? Do I not? Because then you're wondering, would it be me? Would it not be me? And you know, in Nigeria, we pray, God forbid. But is this a case of God forbid, or are there things that can essentially be got right just so everything returns to normalcy?
Incidentally, as you know, I write for the Punch newspaper, and this is an issue I weigh in on today in my column, where I asked a pertinent question: is Nigeria's press free? And I raised these two cases that is under scrutiny: case of Segun Olatunji and the case of Daniel Ojukwu. Today, there is a protest in Abuja for the release of Daniel Ojukwu by FIJ, his FIJ colleagues and some other members of the press. He was abducted in Lagos and was made incommunicado until last Sunday. Today he is spending the 9th day in custody, and we know the due process has not been followed. As I said in my column, both for Segun Olatunji and for Daniel Ojukwu, assuming without consider, as we say in law, that they were guilty of their charges, due process still has to be followed. First, there must be warrant of arrest, that these people have to be shown that they are under arrest. 2, they must have access to their lawyers and members of their family. We were told that Segun Olatunji was abducted by 15 soldiers at his Abule Egba residence in Lagos. He was there with them for 2 weeks. Of course, there is a new twist. He has resigned from First News Online.
He resigned, yes, yesterday.
Claiming that, you know, arising from the old story, saying that the truth will be known, and asking for his salary to be paid. The salary that was holding for the last 1 year should be paid him. That also raises a question. When proprietors of newspapers, you know, founders of
media generally
are not paying their staff, how do you want them not to engage in chua-chua, as we say in this part of the world? How do you want them to survive if you have not paid your editor, general editor, for the last 1 year? So how has he been surviving? And the man has now comfort to say, well, he stands by his own story, but since you have come out with public apology, well, for the survival of your business, you can do that, but truth will be revealed in due course. As for the case of Daniel Ojukwu, we were told that he was arrested in Lagos by officers of Nigerian police, taken to Kwanti from last week Wednesday, all through to Sunday. He was made incommunicado. He was not allowed to use his phone. Nobody knew his whereabouts until he was brought to Abuja on Sunday, and then he was taken to headquarters of cybercrime center in Abuja. But shouldn't he have been arraigned in court, or a court warrant requesting that he be held for more than 2 days, which is what the habeas corpus law says, that I think it's 24 or 48 hours, after which you have to charge the man to court, or you release him on bail. Now, neither of this has happened. We have not been told that they have gone to court to get a arrest to detain him. Warrant to detain him more than 2 days permitted in law. And now, whatever he has committed, he has not committed a treasonable felony. Yes, he may have written a distasteful story, but yes, the laws are very clear. It's the court that can sanction him. It's the court that can sanction, and you need to still follow that due process. So I'm worried about our security agencies taking laws into their hands and applying the rules of the dealing with journalists. It's not fair.
It isn't. Thank you so much. And there are lots of international treaties and even those of the nation that have actually been abused in a bid to keep these two individuals against the rule of law. Thank you so much, Mr. Jide Ojo, journalist, columnist of The Punch, and a public affairs analyst. It's been such a robust engagement with you this afternoon. And indeed, I got it. Yes,
thank you, Mr. Jide Ojo. I got it. And I feel like I need to have a medal for actually learning to pronounce your name correctly. When you're ready to offer the medal, please let's bring it on the round table here on the lounge.
I would, if not for the fact that I can easily pronounce your own name. So,
no. So you think I shouldn't celebrate it? I think I should celebrate it. It's a big milestone for me. Thank you so much for coming on the round table today. And that is where we say goodbyes on the round table. Thank you for joining us today. We have dealt with what we considered the three biggest stories, moving from the cybersecurity levy story to the Hadi Sirika's arraignment earlier today, as well as the press freedom for journalists in Nigeria. My name is Melanie Ishola. Every Thursday we bring you the round table on Punch newspapers, and you can catch us on all of our platforms across social media and the YouTube. Goodbyes. Until the next time.